Good evening. Tonight we are going to talk a little bit about knife safety. So our Bear Scouts working on your bear claw adventure and your whittling chip are going to learn a lot about knife safety. So there's a few general rules of thumb for knife safety. I'm not going to go over everything here tonight, but some of the basics. So first rule of knife safety is make sure there is nobody near you that could accidentally walk into you while you are using your knife. We sometimes call this the blood circle. So basically you want to be able to have a good arm span all the way around you where there's nobody at. So this is whether you're whittling, whether you're cooking and preparing food with a cooking knife. Just a generally good rule of thumb. You always want to handle a knife safely. So when you pass a knife to somebody, you wait until they say thank you before releasing it. Likewise, when they hand it to you, say thank you so they know that you have control of that knife. All right? If you're working with a folding knife like this, like most Cub Scouts work with, don't ever pass a knife to someone while it's open. Always close it, then pass it. So a locking blade is a safer knife. You want something with a fairly good grip, nothing that's slippery. There's a lot of knives out there with really smooth plastic handles, and they can get really slippery, especially in that summertime when you're sweating. I just don't like them. So one of the weird things that is important for knife safety is to make sure your knife is sharp. Right? A sharp knife is actually a safer knife. A dull knife is going to slip off of what you're cutting if you're whittling some wood, if you're trying to carve something, walking stick, whatever, and your knife is dull, it's going to slip, be more likely to slip, and that's when dangerous things can happen. Also, sometime in your life you probably are going to cut yourself with your knife. It's just going to happen. I've done it a fair number of times. It's annoying usually more than anything else. But the sharp knife is going to make a nice, clean cut. A dull knife is going to make a jagged, dirty cut. So if you cut yourself and it's a sharp knife, it's got to make a cut that is going to heal better and faster in the long run. So again, you want to make sure you're not cutting yourself. You don't want to be careless, but we all know things happen. And that's why we learn first aid. So a knife, and most knives have a double bevel, so it's not really going to focus on that. But the blade forms a V, and it's a 20-degree bevel, so each side is 20 degrees, so the left side is a 20 degree, the right side is a 20 degree, so 40 degrees total. So that's a general sharpness knife. You can sharpen your knife at a lower angle, down to 15 degrees. I know some people like to do, not much sharper than that. But the sharper you make that blade, the faster it gets dull, the more often you're going to have to sharpen it. So it's a bit of a balancing act. So there's a lot of different types of sharpening stones out there, or sharpening tools. The most common one that you're going to come across is just a simple sharpening stone. It looks kind of like this. It's a stone of a particular roughness. There are dry stones and there are wet stones. Dry stones you use as is. Wet stones you usually put a lubricating oil on it. These are wet stones. I would put a lubricating oil on it. And so you're going to use that 20-degree bevel and slide your knife across from tip to base, keeping that 20-degree angle. It's hard to judge exactly what a 20-degree angle is. One way to do this is what I call ride the bevel. So if you take your knife and tilt it, you're going to feel where it hits that face of the bevel, right? And that's your 20 degrees. So it takes practice and experience to be able to really get that and get it consistent, and that's why it's important skill to practice. So you can have a stone like this, general grit stone, and it's going to get your knife sharp enough to do most whittling that you're going to do. There are different types of sharpening systems that you can get it ground to a finer grit. What I have personally is I have a fine stone system, 5 stones that starts from rough to fine. If you have a really dull knife and you just have a regular use sharpening stone, it's going to take you a very long time to get that sharp. So having multiple roughnesses is good. A lot of stones will come two-sided. One side's a rougher side, one side's a finer side. And so you take your stone and you ride that bevel, and from tip to base, slide it across, tip to base. But then you need to switch sides. You need to sharpen both sides of that. It's easier to do this to lay it down on the table. That way you have a nice steady base to go across. And then you can switch hands to make sure you do it both sides. And you want to keep count. Make sure you're doing the same amount of strokes on the right side of the knife as you do on the left side of the knife. That way it keeps that point of the blade right in the middle. Because if you sharpen one side more than the other, it's not going to have a straight edge anymore. Other things out there, you can go the power tool route. There are all kinds of tools like this out there, power tools for sharpening. They'll have a little sanding belt that spins and a little guide to put your blade into. And these are really good for a quick general sharpening. They're also good at sharpening like tools like axes and hatchets and stuff like that. But for the money, a sharpening system like this, I like that just because a little bit more cost efficient, and this is, I'm never going to be able to get my knife as sharp as I can with this. And so if your goal is really good sharpness, a nice sharpening stone system is good. So that's a general idea of sharpening your knife. So make sure your tools are safe, make sure your knives are safe, make sure you're using them safely, and part of that is keeping them nice and sharp.